Here we have a 2009 Volkswagen Golf. It's fitted with the 1.4 petrol engine and got roughly 60,000 miles on the clock. As part of the service on this Golf today, I'm going to be doing an engine oil and filter change. The oil filter on this vehicle is a metal spin-on filter, which is located just under the manifold here. It's got like a 27mm hex nut shape on the end. And as with all oil and filter changes, I like to take the oil filler cap off and just pull the dipstick up. That allows air back into the engine as the oil is draining out underneath. I've got my drain tray here, or bucket. I'll slide that underneath. I'm going to tackle the oil filter from the top. You can see there's a bit of an under tray there. It doesn't go back far, only to about there. So I don't generally remove that for these oil filters, but I will put the blue roll down there because I know it's going to make a bit of a mess and it will need some mopping up afterwards. But the oil filter screws in here, and from underneath you can see you've got this aircon pipe and some wiring looms there. Just makes access quite tricky. It's not too bad from the top, so I'll have a go at loosening it. Right, I've got a 30mm socket here. You could use a step ring spanner, I guess that would probably go in there. Quite handy that it's got this nut shape on the end of the filter. Would be more helpful if they used it on most of the spin-on filters. It'd make life a bit easier. I think I've only come across it on these engines actually. I can hear it running into the drain tray. Hopefully that is the drain tray. Yep. Right, that's it. Out it comes. When you remove this, it's a good idea to make sure the seal comes out with it. As you can see, that's lifted slightly. They only pull out. Sometimes they stick to the car, and obviously you don't want that stuck on there when you spin the new filter on. Here's our new filter, and as you can see it says on there to apply oil to the seal face. They don't have to be done up really tight, which you probably could do quite easily with that size nut hex on the back. But yeah, just a bit of oil or a bit of grease around the seal helps to stop it sticking to that face on the engine. Kind of working blind a little bit. It does just say tighten by hand, but I can't actually get my hand around it, so I'll pop that socket back on there and just tweak it up a little bit. That should be plenty. Also, got some brake cleaner here, which is a brilliant degreaser. You can see I've spilt some oil there onto the heat shield here. It's good for blasting off little spillages. That'll do, and it dries pretty quick, so I'll leave that for a while and take it up in the air. I'll get that bit of blue roll out actually. that's it, that's soaked up quite a bit. And next we'll take it up in the air. Right, so here we are under the car. I'm just getting a socket to remove the sump plug. I believe it's a 19mm, yeah, single hex is what I'm going to use anyway. You can use a spanner, nothing wrong with that. It's just this reduces the chance of slipping. It's warm but not hot, so the hotter the engine, the faster the oil will come out, because it will be thinner. So just be wary of that. So I've got my drain tray here. I'll just hold this up and hopefully it won't splash around too much. Right, I think that's it. There. Right, I'll just leave this down on the floor and let it do its thing for a little while. That's been draining for a little while now, just down to a slow, steady drip. Something to check before you put the sump plug back in, sump bung, whatever you want to call it. Just make sure the washer is intact, it isn't crushed or split or anything. They're usually good to go several times. The washer doesn't actually come off of this plug, but if you do find it's damaged or you're in any doubts, they're not very expensive for a plug, probably 3 or 4 quid. When you go to collect your parts, just make sure you've got your registration number with you, and they'll be able to recommend the correct oil and oil filter and the quantity of oil. Now the oil filter for this vehicle isn't a genuine Volkswagen one, it's an aftermarket one which you should be able to get for under £10. I think that was about £6. I'll just nip this up. That's it. The engine oil, there's so many different grades on the market and different manufacturers. As I say, just make sure you've got your registration number with you and they'll be able to recommend the correct one for the engine fitted in your car. You should be able to get 5 litres for around about £50 to £60. And this one, I was told, holds 3.2 litres. So we'll drop it down next and put some oil in. Right, I've got my homemade funnel out. Making sure the dipstick is still pulled, this time allowing air back out of the engine while the oil's going in, hopefully stop it all glugging back up and out the filler. But keep an eye on the filler as you tip it in, because sometimes they do glug back and overfill. So you just got to take it easy really, pour it in slowly. Yeah, the recommended amount of oil for this engine was 3.2 litres. I'm going to go with 3 litres to start with. Always go slightly under, because the recommended amount isn't always spot on, and having too much oil in the engine can cause damage, just like not having enough. I'm talking there, I think. Oh no, yeah, that's about 3 litres. If you overfill it, obviously you've got to get back underneath and fiddle around trying to drain off any excess. So I always prefer to slightly underfill. We'll run it up and dip it and see how we get on. It's easier to top up than having to drain down. Right, so now that's full up, oil filter's on tight, sump plug's in tight, cap and the dipstick are back in. Let's fire it up. Just going to make sure the oil pressure light goes straight out, which it has. All sounds good. And you don't need to rev it. It's not a good idea to rev an engine in general when you first fire it up. But even more so if it's been drained of oil, because it can take a little while to circulate around the galleries and bearings. Right, that should do. And we'll just leave it now for 3 or 4 minutes, let it settle, and then we'll dip the oil and see what level we're at. Right, so we've got a recommended amount of 3.2. I've put 3 litres in so far. It's stood and settled for a little while. Oh yeah, and as you can see, we're down in the that marked area there. Need to try and get it up to, I would say up to here. So I'll go ahead and put the other 0.2 in. Might even need a little bit more than that. Right, and yeah, we'll just leave that to settle for another 3 or 4 minutes. Don't have to start it up again because it's already circulated and filled up the oil filter and the various galleries. So just got to let it stand now. It's not entirely clear on this dipstick because you've got a kinked area there and a kinked area there, and this checkered kind of marked area in the middle. I'm going to say the maximum would be the top of that marked area rather than up here on the kink. So it's sat for a few minutes. I've checked it once and topped it up again. It's got about 3.3 in it now. And as you can see, that has just covered that checkered area. So I'm going to leave it at that. Quite happy with that. Dipstick back in, oil cap back on. All that's left to do, as I do with most jobs, just give it a bit of a road test around the block, and I'll run it back in and double check the oil filter and the sump plug, make sure there's no leaks.